Hello everyone. Today I will continue to talk about the book Macroeconomics. In some previous episode, we talk about how to calculate the national's GDP, and now we have a similar measurement of people's living standard, which is called CPI, which is Consumer Price Index. It can be considered as an index to measure the rate of inflation or the living standard or just simply the price. But now we will discuss about the topic, does the CPI overstate inflation? So what is CPI? It is a closely watched measure of inflation. Policymakers in Federal Reserve monitor the CPI when choosing monetary policy. In addition, many laws and private contracts have cost of living allowance, which is called COLAs, which use CPI for changes in price levels. For instance, Social Security benefits are adjusted automatically every year so that inflation will not erode the living standard of elderly. So, we should ensure that because we need to ensure the real benefit of every elder people remain the same. Although probably now China is now facing the problem of a group of a serious aging problem, especially in I would say modern city like Shanghai. I would just make a guess that probably the pensions for old people will gradually reduce within 1 to 2 decades until zero. So I think there are a lot of signals from our governments that are quite negative about the how to ensure the living quality of old people. Although we can see from old news that we are praising the living standard of elder people is kept rising. So because so much depends on CPI, because CPI is used for each nation, because each nation has each nation's CPI, they're used to conduct a lot of policies, to try to measure what rate do we need to increase any kind of pensions. So many economists believe that for a number of reasons CPI tends to overstate inflation. And now we need to find a reason why. So why a lot of economists are considering about overstating inflation? Because in order to ensure real benefit stays the same, if the inflation rate is 5%, then for example the pension is increased from $1,000 to $1,050, which is increased around 5%. Yes, but if it overstates inflation, it means that probably the pension is increased by 5%. However, the actual rate of inflation is only 3%, which means this is increased the budget deficit of government. So the first problem is the substitution bias that we have already discussed. Because CPI measures the price of a fixed basket of goods, it does not reflect the ability of consumers to substitute towards goods whose relative price has fallen. Thus, when relative price changes, the true cost of living rises less rapidly than the CPI. For example, I have two choices, I would say to travel to anywhere by public transportation or by private cars. So, if we only measure because of we are now developing renewable energy for cars, so those cars, the price increases because there are a lot of demand for the cars. So when the cost increases, some middle-class family would consider the opportunity cost of buying a car is a bit too unbearable, so they tend to use more public transportation. But if we still calculate the car price at the current price, so it means it is overstating the rate of inflation because more people tends to not traveling by private cars. Second problem is the introduction of new goods. When new goods is introduced in marketplace, consumers are better off because they have more products from which to choose. In effect, the introduction of new goods increases the real value of dollars. Yet this increases in the purchasing power of the dollar is not reflected in a lower CPI. So if I introduce new goods, so it means the competitiveness in the market is being increases. So firms tend to to have more economies of scale or tend to decrease the price in order to increase revenue or increase profit. So because of the high competitiveness, like probably the price are reduced, or we would say price stay the same, but because of more choices, introduction of new goods increases the real value of dollar. So since there are a real increase in dollar, real value increase in dollar, so it means the real increase in purchasing power are not reflected in CPI, because CPI only measure the price of a good. Third problem is unmeasured changes in quality. When firms changes the quality of goods sale, not all the goods price change reflects the change in the cost of living, because there are a lot of some governments do best to account for changes in quality of goods over time. For example, Ford increased the horsepower of a particular car model from one year to the next. CPI will reflect the change. The quality adjusted price of the car will not rise as fast as the unadjusted price. So many changes in quality, such as comfort or safety, are hard to measure. If unmeasured quality improvement is typical, then the measured CPI rises faster than it should. So it means that probably because CPI only, measure the prices. So if raise the quality, raise the price, so CPI increase. But actually, there is no, not to say no need, but not necessarily needed to increase the quality. So the quality increase also partly compensate for part of the satisfaction of the whole economy. So it do rise faster than it should. And also because measurement problems, some economists have suggested revising laws to reduce the degree of indexation. For example, social security benefits could be indexed to CPI inflation minus 1%. Such a change would provide a rough way of offsetting these measurement problems. So there are a lot of examples, and mainly in this episode, we discuss about 3 reasons why we say CPI is overstating inflation. The first reason is because if a price increase, we can choose the substitution good. The second reason is if an extra good is introduced, then we have more choices. So the price is overstated. The third reason is that because changing quality means a rise in price, but the rise in price do not come for the viewpoint of the living quality. The living quality do not compensate more % of our satisfaction. So it is the 3 reasons why CPI overstate inflation. Thank you all for listening. Have a nice day.